Now it's time for some New York Mets baseball talk. Here's Gary Mack bringing you the latest news and analysis from Mets Nation and the world of baseball on another edition of Mets Musings.
And hello and welcome to another edition of Mets Musings, episode number 325. I hope you had a good week. I keep saying that every week, the same thing. Hope you had a better week than the Mets did. Lost 2 out of 3 to Cincinnati. Now, I know what everybody's thinking. Cincinnati's an awful team. How can they lose 2 out of 3? They did. But Cincinnati has played a lot better lately since then. I mean, they swept L.A. and beat somebody else, I think, in between there. So they're a slightly better improved team. So maybe they're not as bad as we thought when they were so terrible. But I guess you're never as bad as you look when you're losing, and you're never as good as you look when you're winning. So combination there, but yeah, it's it hasn't been a good week. Then they go to Philly and they split with Philly, have one game rained out. So we can't even count that. So they win in dramatic fashion, coming from behind, and they lose a game in Philly. So another, not even a 500 week. It just seems this is the routine that they're in. They win a game, they lose a game. They win a game, they lose a game. They come home, they beat the Blue Jays 12-2, lose the next day 12-1. So maybe this is what this team is. Maybe it is just a 500 team, and we are going to have to put up with it all year. And, of course, now the injuries, we're getting a little bit of injuries here. Yoenis Cespedes, finally they put him on the DL. I don't know why they waited so long, but he's got a right hip flexor strain. Phillip Evans was called up from Las Vegas. The DL stint is backdated to May 14th, meaning he will be eligible to return on May 24th. Hip injury is the same ailment Cespedes has been playing through recently. He was out of the lineup on Tuesday, but was available to pinch hit. I don't know why they even bothered. They should have DL'd him last week. He only would have missed 6 games. Now he's going to miss, theoretically, with the off days, he's going to miss 9 games. So sometimes you got to scratch your head. Just if he's hurt, put him on the DL. He's not helping you. I know you need the offense, but he's really not helping you anyway if he's injured. So you're best off just resting him and let him get better. But, there is some thought that he's never going to get better. This is going to be a continuous nagging type of injury. Who knows? We'll have to see. And if that's the case, it could be another Mo Vaughn situation or another David Wright situation. And we even have some David Wright news a little bit later in the show. Mets right-handed reliever Anthony Swarzak, remember him? He got the left oblique strain. He was a free agent relief pitcher that everybody's high on. He's going to throw off a mound yesterday. He's progressing nicely, apparently. We're going to get him into games, get him going so we can get him back here and help us. He recently played with catch without pain, according to Mike Puma of the New York Post. He then traveled, Swarzak did, to Port St. Lucie to continue working his way back. Callaway noted the team views Swarzak as a pitcher who will be used in a variety of spots upon his return, including high-pressure situations. Hopefully, when they get him back, they'll let go of Ramos because he has been a train wreck, if you will. Not a very good acquisition by Scrappy Sandy, who, you wonder if he should go too. I think you all know my thoughts on that. I haven't changed my mind. Yes, the Harvey for Mesoraco deal is looking okay so far. Mesoraco has kind of settled down at the pitching staff a little bit. got a couple of hits. So let's see if he stays healthy, and maybe with Plawecki coming back, they can be a nice duo. But I'll say it again, and as I said it many times, the game is past Andy by, and he's not adjusting right. Or he doesn't. I don't know if it's him or you don't have the money from the Wilpons or what. But we talked about injuries last year, blamed it on medical staff and everything. They took care of that. They brought in a new medical staff. They set up new criteria, and yet we see the same thing happening. So maybe they're just cursed. Who knows? Speaking of injuries, Todd Frazier got a hamstring injury. He's eligible to return from the DL on Friday, but doesn't expect to be activated at that time. Again, he told the Post Mike Puma after Wednesday's game. He was playing through the hamstring issue for roughly 3 weeks. He was hitting .313 on April 16th, so his average dipped to .237 in the 3 weeks since. He was hitting .167 in 6 games in May. In Frazier's absence, the Mets have been using a combination of Wilmer Flores, Jose Reyes, and Luis Guillorme at third base. Why don't they just leave Guillorme there? Let's see what he can do. The kid was batting 1,000 the other day. Now I think he's down to a paltry 600. He was 3 for 3, first time in the majors. Got 3 hits in a row. I think he's like 3 for 5 now. So he's probably hitting 560, 600, something in that range. Doesn't really matter at this point in time. It's just a small fraction, small picture, if you will. But he's a defensive wizard. He's played a little bit at third. Played great second. Played great short in the minors. So let's see what he can do at third. Would that be too much to ask for a change? I don't think so. And can we please have Jose Reyes gone now? I know that there's a lot of people that loved Jose Reyes, and I know I said that it was a good deal bringing him back last year, or when they brought him back, and I know I wasn't too upset about bringing him back this year, but he's had enough of a look, and he's finished. Bad decisions on the base paths, and maybe he just doesn't have that speed. The other day, he goes in first base. He's on first. 2 outs. I think he went in as a pinch runner. They put up a pinch hitter, Dom Smith. Reyes got picked off with 2 outs. How do you get picked off in that situation? This is a veteran. He shouldn't be getting picked off. In fact, he got picked off twice. He got the call in his favor the first time, and they got him the second time as well. That was in the Cincy game, I think it was against Arrieta. That was in the Philly game. I'm sorry. And I believe it was a 1-0 game at the time. So how do you get into a 1-0 game? You took the bat right out of the kid's hand. You blew a pitcher because they had to. Dom Smith was pinch hitting for the pitcher. So they had to bring in another pitcher, and then that pitcher was leading off the next inning, so he had to blow another player. Or burn another player, I should say. This is a veteran. And this isn't the first time that he's made a stupid move, nor is it the first time that he's been picked off of first base. So it's time for him to go. And it's time to get a young guy in there. Get Guillorme, let him play a little while Frazier's out. Let him be the swing man. Evans is up. Evans played left field the other day. Evans can play infield. He can play third. He can play a little short. He can play second. Flores can do the same thing. I don't think we need Reyes anymore. We need to get young. We need to get quick. We need to be more of a contact hitting team and not a home run hitting team, Sandy. It's not working. Please realize that. That a home run hitting team, when it goes into a slump, they are awful, and this is what we're seeing. When they went 12-2, there wasn't a heck of a lot of home runs being hit that game. It was moving the line, hit, move the line, keep the line going. That's what's interesting. That's what's exciting. Not guys striking out and then occasionally hitting a home run. That's not exciting. Not at all. But Scrappy Sandy, he's a big home run guy. But then does he go out and get the best home run hitters on the market? No, he gets the cheapest. He gets the low end of the market. And it's got to end somewhere. It's got to end. You know, your fan base is up in arms. You got to do something. Or else you're going to find a lot of empty seats in Citi Field. Personally, won't be as crowded to get in and out of the game. You have your choice of seats, so it may not be all bad. But I don't think we want to see that happen. We want to see the ballpark filled and people cheering and concession stands selling stuff and stores selling stuff. We want to take this city back. We had this city 3 years ago. And in this short period of time, we blew it. You know, the Mets have they built this team on pitching. And they've always been a bit of a pitching organization. Maybe it's time to start looking in the draft for excellent position players and okay pitchers. Maybe it's okay to draft a guy that doesn't throw 100 miles an hour, but knows how to pitch. Maybe it's time to sign a guy like that. Jake Arrieta, his velocity's gone down, but he's still pitching pretty darn well. Bartolo Colon's having a great year. Maybe we got to start bringing in pitchers and not flamethrowers. Because they're not getting the job done. And here's a question for the week for all the listeners out there. If the Mets continue on this trend at the All-Star break or maybe even sooner, would you be willing to trade one of the pitchers? Now, keep in mind, you have to get a king's ransom for a DeGrom, a Syndergaard. But if somebody came to you with an offer that knocked you off your feet, would you do it? I think I would. All right, we got a voicemail, and we'll play that right now from our good friend Jerry in Long Island. And Jerry, take it away.
Hey, Gary, this is Jerry from Long Island. If the Mets don't turn it around by the All-Star break, I would say unload players like Cabrera, Bruce, and Cespedes, and unload for prospects, and then wind up with, like, say, Alonso at first, Delorme at second. I agree with what you said about Delorme. You maybe give him a chance. Rosario remain at short. Keep Frazier at third. Have Nimmo Lagares, and Conforto in the outfield. Add a veteran pitcher to the staff, pitching staff. Get rid of Vargas, and probably release Reyes and Gonzalez, and keep Flores in the reserve role, and put it when TG Rivera's ready, put him in on the bench. Thank you.
Okay, Jerry, and thank you for your input. And that's kind of what we were talking about, getting rid of something, getting rid of Reyes. I didn't think of Vargas. I doubt if they'll get rid of Vargas because he's got the big contract. According to Mets standards, a big contract, $9 million for 2 years. Yeah, I have to agree in certain aspects of what you said. Getting rid of certain guys. Gonzalez, I think, will go. I think you may be able to move him for something small if he continues hitting at this pace. I would consider that. Cabrera, another guy I would move if he keeps hitting the way he's hitting. Some team may want him. Cespedes is an interesting situation. If he is truly hitting the way he has, if he's healthy, I should say, first off, and hitting, having a decent year, and somebody comes a calling, look, you're not going to get a king's ransom for him. Maybe you get a prince's ransom for him. Should be able to get something better than what they did last year when they unloaded some of those guys. But that was merely a salary dump. So you may have to part with some money for Cespedes, pay part of that salary. But if you can move him at this point, I think you're better off trying to move him and try to get some decent prospects back. If you move a Syndergaard or a DeGrom, I want the two top prospects from a team. That's, you're going to get a potential Cy Young pitcher. You want the top best players in that organization. I don't think it's too much to ask. So that's what you're going to look for, and maybe a lower prospect. But we'll see how it all plays out, of course. As the season goes along. And let's take a break now, and then we'll come back with my special guest that I pre-recorded an interview last evening.
Looking for great Cardinals talk? Then check out Conversations with C70. My name's Daniel Shoftaw, and I talk with some of the great bloggers on the internet today about their teams, but it always goes back to the Cardinals. Find the latest episode on my website, www.cardinal70.com, or at baseballpodcast.net.
Did you know that Baseball PhD can be heard on baseballtalkradio.com?
Our shows rotate with other top baseball podcasts.
Now don't forget, that's baseballtalkradio.com.
With us, we'll help you get a PhD in life through baseball.
With baseballtalkradio.com, you'll hear the rest of the excellent universe of baseball podcasts.
516-619-6341. That is the comment voicemail hotline if you'd like to be a part of the show, and drop us a line, leave us a comment or a voicemail question, anything at all. Call that number, 516-619-6341, or go to MetsMusings.com and click on that widget in the middle of the screen, and that's a speak pipe, and you can leave a voicemail right through your computer through your computer's microphone. Or if you prefer to do things the old-fashioned way, send us an email at metsmusings@gmail.com. The Facebook page is facebook.com/groups/MetsMusings, and the Twitter handle is at MetsMusings1.
With all the Mets news, it is the news from around the world and around the corner. Here's Gary Mack.
And I'm back, and joining me tonight is Jesse Friedman of the Rattle podcast. It's an Arizona Diamondbacks podcast, and Jesse, thanks for joining me on the podcast tonight.
Absolutely, Gary. It's great to be with you.
Jesse, we were talking a little bit beforehand here, and Diamondbacks are having a little bit of a rough stretch right now, but all in all, they've gotten off to a pretty decent start this year, and injuries are starting to hit them now. But take us through the beginning of the year so far, and what's the feeling out in Arizona about how they're playing so far?
Yeah, well, the season started phenomenally. The Diamondbacks got off to one of the hardest starts in baseball, probably the hottest start in the National League. A lot of the different websites around the game of baseball had the Diamondbacks ranked as the best National League team for a while, pretty much up until this last week. But yeah, all in all, I think the season has gone very well for the Diamondbacks. Zach Greinke has come back after a really nice season last year. He seems to be right back there where he was a season ago, despite the fact that he's really starting to age quite a bit, and the fastball velocity is in really the upper 80s at this point. He's still been very effective for this team. He had a really nice outing last night, actually, against the Milwaukee Brewers in the one game of that series that they did win. So Greinke's been really good, and the rotation as a whole has been very good for the Diamondbacks this season. They have one of the best rotations in the game. Of late, that has kind of taken a bit of a hit with some injuries. Taijuan Walker, the Diamondbacks have lost for the season to Tommy John surgery, and then also just recently Robbie Ray is out with an oblique injury. Hopefully he'll be back in about a month or so. So the Diamondbacks have really struggled with injuries, as you mentioned there. AJ Pollock is also out for 4 to 8 weeks. AJ Pollock is probably your number one MVP candidate for the National League. As of before this injury, he had been that good for this team, but he's now also down. So the feeling around this team was once incredible. The Dodgers are at probably the lowest point that they've been at in years. They're 16-25. That has Diamondbacks fans feeling very good about themselves. But all in all, of late, it's been a bit of a rough go. They've lost 7 of 8. But somehow they're still sitting in first place. They're 25-18, and hopefully they can continue that here into the rest of the season.
Well, you're coming into a town where the team has really gone south. And the season really is hanging in the balance for us. So a good chance to get healthy there, but hopefully the Mets can turn it around. We gotta get a little roll going of our own. And don't mind my dog. You mentioned Pollock being injured. That's a big injury because he was really leading this team in a lot of offensive categories, and Jake Lamb is out, and Goldschmidt is really struggling this year. What's going on with Paul Goldschmidt?
He really has just seemed like a different guy at the plate. I don't think anyone has really been able to figure out exactly what it is with Goldie that has caused him to struggle so much. But it is a bit of a concern because not only has he struggled in the month and a half that he's played so far this season, but he actually had the worst month of his career in September at the end of last season when he hit, I think, around $180 in the month of September last year. So this is really all in all about a 2.5 month stretch where Paul Goldschmidt is hitting right around the Mendoza line. He has been that bad for this long. And I think some people are starting to be legitimately concerned that maybe something is going wrong here. It's really puzzling, though, because it doesn't really seem to have been connected with any sort of injury. He had a bit of an elbow issue last September. Some people think it's that, but I really haven't heard a whole lot of backing for how that could possibly be. Goldie certainly has not mentioned anything along those lines. So it's really been very confusing for Diamondbacks fans to figure out what is really going on here. It just seems like he's late on fastballs. He's really had a hard time hammering the pitches in the strike zone that are easy to hit that he's hit in the past. His timing has just been off all season long. And so of all the concerns that people have about the Diamondbacks, I think Paul Goldschmidt hitting 208 and still only having 12 RBIs in mid-May, I think that's probably one of the biggest concerns, if not the number one concern among Diamondbacks fans so far.
And he's not hitting for power either. He's got 4 home runs, I think, the last time I
Yep.
looked. And that's really not in his character. And it's really something. How old is he now?
Goldschmidt is 30. So he's at that point where you figure maybe, you things start to turn around a little bit, but he's certainly not so old that you would expect this kind of a downturn all at once.
Yeah, unless some guys they hit 30 and then it just goes for some reason. But let's hope that's not the case, as he's been such a great player for the game and for the Diamondbacks that you hate to see anybody go into any kind of steep decline, and it seems it's so steep and so quick.
Yeah, absolutely. And Paul Goldschmidt, I mean, there's no more important player to this team and to this franchise, and especially considering that Goldie's contract comes up at the end of next season. So the Diamondbacks, all the while this is going on, are trying to figure out whether or not they want to fork out the 90, 100, 125, whatever number that's going to be, $1 million in order to bring him back to the desert. If this continues, I think it might be hard for the Diamondbacks to find the motivation to make that signing. So this not only has a big impact for the Diamondbacks this season, but it has a big impact for the future of Paul Goldschmidt himself.
How true, and based on what happened this year with the free agents, you gotta really produce now.
Right, absolutely.
All right, well, you mentioned Pollock being out. This is a tough loss for the team. How are they going to cover this? And are they deep enough to really get by until he can come back?
I think on paper they certainly are. It's been kind of a bizarre start to the season. I mentioned they've lost 7 of 8 games. They're really in a rough patch right now. Really, all of that has had to do with the offense. Even when AJ Pollock was in the lineup, he was really the one bright spark. Goldschmidt, as we've talked about, has struggled, and really all the way up and down the lineup, you've seen struggles in similar ways. Steven Souza Jr. Was injured for the first month or so of the season. He's come back and played 12 games and hit a .154 entering today. Gerard Dyson is hitting under 200. Jeff Mathis is hitting under 200. Chris Owings is hitting right around 200. None of these guys are headliner type of offensive players, but it has seemed like pretty much up and down the entire lineup, everyone is playing just a little bit below the expectations that we've normally set for them. So I think AJ Pollock going out is probably a wake-up call to all these other guys on this team. Ketel Marte is another one who need to start producing in big ways. And there is also a little bit of good news in that Jake Lamb is expected to return in a few days here. He might be back for the Mets series. He might not. That still has yet to be determined. But he should be a big boost for this team as well. And really offensively, they've struggled. Overall, they have struggled a lot this season. They are actually dead last in all of baseball right now with a .222 team batting average entering today. That's their team batting average is .222. And I think for Diamondbacks fans, we're just all amazed that we're still sitting in first place and we're still 7 games over 500.
And yeah, you're playing what last year was one of the toughest divisions, and this year it seems to have come down to earth a little bit. Still a very difficult division, but you mentioned before about the Dodgers, which is a complete shock to everybody.
Oh, absolutely. The Dodgers are sitting at 16-25 right now, and I don't think there's anything that makes Diamondbacks fans smile more than the fact that the Dodgers are 9 games under 500 right now. I think they're probably the foremost concern in the division, at least from my standpoint. I don't see the Giants really making a big run here. I don't really see the Rockies as being that big of a threat either. I mean, they're 3 games over 500. They're only 2 games out, so they're in a pretty good spot. But at the same time, they've been outscored by 22 runs this season. Their opposing team has scored 22 more runs than they have in their games, and that just doesn't really give me a whole lot of confidence in them either. So I think the Dodgers are still probably the team that has the biggest chance to overcome the Diamondbacks. But can you really do that when you're already down by 8 games? It remains to be seen, but I really don't see how the Dodgers can pull that off.
Yeah, I guess now the thing is to try to win as much as you can and build up that lead. So if they get healthy and if they get winning, that they're too far back to make a run at it. But I was looking at your catching situation, and it struck me as an old catcher, it struck me as an interesting situation. You're using 3 catchers out there, and it looks like they're pretty. Mathis isn't got as many games, but it looks like they're splitting the time pretty evenly. Is that a planned thing or just out of necessity?
Yeah, I think the Diamondbacks, when they signed Alex Avila, he was one of the moves they made over the offseason. I think they kind of had in mind this 3 catcher. I don't know if you call it a platoon or whatever word you want to use for it. But they've got Avila, they've got John Ryan Murphy, who's probably been their best catcher, at least from an offensive standpoint. He's actually he has 3 home runs. He's at least given them a little bit on offense. But overall, catching has been dismal for the Diamondbacks. I think they've done a solid job defensively. But you look at the batting average of Jeff Mathis is $190. John Ryan Murphy, who I mentioned, has given them some offense. He's still only hitting 231. And then public enemy number 1 around Phoenix right now is Alex Avila. This guy has 72 at bats on the season, and he has struck out 39 times. He's literally striking out about half the time that he comes up to the plate. He's hitting 125. So hopefully for Diamondbacks fans, this is something that can turn around soon.
Well, you're coming into a situation here where we lost our 2 starting catchers to injuries and had a double-A catcher catching, and now just made a trade to bring in Devin Masaraco from the Cincinnati Reds, and he's actually made a little bit of a difference, but we're having the same problems here at the Mets. The offense is just non-existent lately. Even though they scored 12 runs last night, they scored 1 tonight, or today I should say. But that should make for an interesting series, perhaps when both of them get together. It could be 3 pitching duels.
Oh, absolutely. The Diamondbacks, certainly, the games that they are winning right now, they're winning with their pitching, which is even despite, this stretch where they've lost 7 of 8, their pitching has remained quite good. It's just the offense has really struggled. You look at over these last 8 games, the Diamondbacks are literally averaging right around 4 to 5 hits per game. That's all their offense is giving them right now. So they've had to win with pitching, which is a recipe that has worked for them some this season, but at some point, they're going to need to start hitting again, and hopefully, for Diamondbacks fans in this Mets series, that can actually start to happen.
Well, we're hoping just the opposite. And I'm looking at the pitching matchups, and what I see so far, what it's been announced is Zach Godley against Jacob deGrom, Patrick Corbin against Steven Matz, and Zach Greinke against Noah Syndergaard, which sounds like there's a couple of good pitching matchups there. You want to take us through some of those guys?
Yeah, well, so unfortunately for the Mets, you guys are getting the 3 most stable, most reliable pitchers in the Diamondbacks rotation. So that didn't work out so well from your perspective. But I mean, the Mets are probably giving the Diamondbacks their best 3 also in deGrom, Matz, and Syndergaard. So it should be a lot of fun to watch, in theory at least. Zach Godley going in that first game on Friday night. He's a guy who got off to an electric start. This is a guy who posted an ERA of 3.37 last season, and he started the year in the minor leagues. He wasn't even expected to help the major league team at all. He was more of a depth piece for them, but he came out boasted one of the best curveballs in the game, and it is filthy when he can control it. He has one of the best curveballs in baseball. But of late, he has struggled, especially with his command. It seems like some of his stuff moves around a little bit too much for him to be able to control it. So that's been a bit of an issue for Godley as of late. But he has been generally steady and consistent for the Diamondbacks. In game 2, you've got Patrick Corbin. This is probably the Diamondbacks' ace so far this season. I mentioned Greinke's been good, but Corbin is probably in your Cy Young race as of right now. He has a 2.53 ERA. WHIP is way down there at 0.86. Guys are hitting 174 off of him. So Patrick Corbin, who is a free agent at the end of this year, so this is a big season for him. He has really come out and been very good. And then the last guy that the Mets are going to face in this series, Zach Greinke, been very steady as of late. He has an enormous home road split. At home, he's 2-0 with a 1.69 ERA. On the road, he's 1-2 with a 7.27 ERA. So that's something the Mets maybe could pick on a little bit. But all in all, Greinke has looked good, especially as of late. So I guess we'll see what happens there.
I don't know the Mets' history against Greinke offhand, but they seem to have, if my memory is right, handled him pretty well. So, I mean, we'll have to see, of course, what happens from here on in. But it sounds like it's going to be a good weekend. And like you said, both teams struggling offensively. It could be very low-scoring games.
Absolutely. I would expect nothing less. And I mean, with baseball, you figure if two teams are struggling offensively, maybe that means that they're going to break out at the same time. Maybe we talk about how low scoring the games are going to be, and then it's 10 to 9 every day.
Yeah, every game.
Right. But at least based on what the Diamondbacks and the Mets have done as of late, I would agree. You would at least expect these games are not going to be very high scoring.
Now, is there anybody that's hot on the team that the Mets have to be leery of? Of course, you have to be leery of. I don't care what Goldschmidt's hitting; you still got to be leery of him and watch him. But is there anybody that's been red hot lately that really the Mets should be keeping an eye on?
You know what, Gary? Basically, every player on this team is in a cold slump right now, except for one guy. Daniel Descalso has actually been knocking the cover off the ball lately. Disclutchso is his nickname around here, because it seems like every time he gets a hit, it is meaningful. And he's had a good season. He's hitting 261, which isn't anything super phenomenal, but a 363 on base percentage, 514 slugging. He has 5 homers, 22 RBIs. He's probably been, now that AJ Pollock is on the disabled list, he's probably the Diamondbacks' best hitter in this moment, which I don't think we ever thought we would say that. Daniel Descalso is more of a utility bench player in the minds of most people than anything else, but he has been very effective for the Diamondbacks as of late.
And if I remember, he's always been a kind of a pesky player anyway, especially to the Mets. So I'm not surprised at that. So. Anybody ice cold that could be coming out of as you say, everybody's in a slump, so they all could come out of it this weekend.
Yeah, pretty much everyone up and down the lineup. Chris Owings, Devin Marrero, Jeff Mathis, Gerard Dyson, Steven Souza, Alex Avila, Jake Lamb, if he does come back in this series, Ketel Marte, Nick Ahmed. I'm not kidding. Literally all of these guys are guys that D-backs fans are waiting to turn around. So I guess we just have to wait and see.
Well, they say hitting's contagious, and I guess so is slumps. So that could be why we're seeing it. And of course, as we were talking, the injuries too as well. What's the feeling in the community about the overall coming off of the last year making the playoffs, and now this year in first place, but struggling now? Is there a feeling that they can hang on to get better, or is it more of a doom and gloom?
As of late, it's been a little bit more of a doom and gloom. I mean, you know how baseball fans are. You know, one day you love the team, and they lose a few games in a row, and you can't stand them, and you think, the world is crashing down and it's going to burn. Um, so as of late, the feelings around this team have not been very positive at all. I'm one of few people, to be honest, who remains pretty optimistic. Not just because I think the Diamondbacks are a good team, which I do think, but because I don't think that the National League West really has a whole lot to challenge them with. I just don't see any of these teams realistically being able to rise to that challenge, especially when Robbie Ray comes back. They're going to get Shelby Miller back from Tommy John surgery in about a month. Jake Lamb is coming back. Pollock will eventually be back. So hopefully, as the Diamondbacks start to get healthy again, I am going to remain confident in this team. I think pitching wins, and they have one of the best pitching staffs in the game, and I think that will carry them to the promised land this season.
Without a doubt, but still got to get a little hitting in there.
Absolutely, and we're waiting on that. We're still waiting on that.
Now there have been reports, it's defined now that the what is it? The county, Maricopa County, has voted to allow the Diamondbacks to look for a new stadium deal, or maybe you can clarify that a little bit for us. It's a little confusing, but there is a chance they could be moving out of that stadium, and possibly does that open up the possibility that they could move out of state as well?
Yeah, this whole deal is very confusing. To be honest, I don't perfectly understand the entire thing, but I'll give you the things that I have been able to latch on to. I believe the year is 2022. It's either 2021 or 2022. Listeners can maybe try to look that up. But that is the year that the Diamondbacks have their lease agreement with Maricopa County. It's going to end in that year. So as of prior to this deal being made, the Diamondbacks were going to be locked into their current lease of the building into, I think it was the mid 2020s. So it was supposed to be a much longer agreement. So what this deal has done is it has given the Diamondbacks the freedom to move out of that building, like you said, in a much shorter span of time. The Diamondbacks kind of side of things is that they will take on the repairs to the building, which were formerly supposed to be done by Maricopa County. Now the Diamondbacks are going to have to pay for those repairs and renovations. But it does open the opportunity for the Diamondbacks to move out of that building in about 5 years, which it wouldn't surprise me if they did. But part of the agreement is that they have to remain within Maricopa County, I believe. So I don't think the possibility of them moving out of state is really anything to be too concerned about for Diamondbacks fans right now. I believe this deal does lock them into Arizona, but it does give them the opportunity to move out of the building, which is something I think they probably want to do.
And so, what is the plan? I mean, do they obviously they want to get out because of this whole thing about the repairs? I think it's I read somewhere $100 million or something worth of repairs that they need to have done. I'm not sure if that number is accurate. You may know more than that, better than I. But are they looking like for land to build their own stadium, or are they looking for another county or a city to come up with the money? What exactly are the Diamondbacks looking for?
Yeah. All those details are pretty gray at this point. The team hasn't really been too specific. I think most of the information that is out there is probably more speculation than anything else. But there are a few sites that I've heard talked about around the Phoenix metro area, probably not too far from where the current building is right now. Whether or not they would try to get public funds to build that, or whether they would try to assemble a team of donators, people who have money who could contribute to something like this. That has yet to be seen. But I think the Diamondbacks are in a position where this building has gotten a little bit old. And it's weird because if you go to a game, I don't think you would ever think of it as old. It's not really my favorite stadium in the world. It's more of an airport hangar than anything else from my standpoint. It just doesn't really have a ballpark feel to it. Part of that is because you need a retractable roof in Arizona. Nobody's going to come watch a game when it's 115 degrees outside, which it is throughout most of the summer, unfortunately.
Right.
But yeah, I think they would like to get out of that building, given the underlying repairs that are apparently necessary, even though, like I mentioned, you go to a game, I don't think you'd really notice. But apparently there are some things that need to be done, and it sounds like it would be better for them to move out and start something new rather than try to restore that building.
And how old is that? I mean, it's really, what is it, 20 years old or so?
20 years old, yep.
It's amazing when you look at Fenway Park and Wrigley Field and how they're still going, and Chavez Ravine Dodger Stadium, and now we are building these stadiums, and in 20 years they seem to be obsolete. It's incredible to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was actually incredible to me to see that. I believe, I don't know the exact number, but the Diamondback Stadium, despite being 20 years old, is actually I believe it's in the top half of older stadiums in the game, which is really surprising to me because, like you mentioned, you've got Fenway Park, you've got Wrigley Field, you've got these stadiums with all sorts of history that have been around for, 50 up to 100 years. And then you've got all these other stadiums like Chase Field that after 20 years are growing obsolete and have such significant problems that it's better to just move into an entirely new building. It puzzles me just as much as it does you, Gary.
Well, I still refer to it as the Bob.
Right. Yes. That'll always be the classic name for Chase Field. I think everyone likes the name Bank One Ballpark, maybe just a little bit more.
And of course, if they do anything, they have to have a dome. I mean, there's no way about it.
Yeah, there's really, unless someone invents some way to have open air conditioning, which I don't see being possible. I think the Diamondbacks are going to be stuck with some sort of roofed facility. Whether or not they can maybe make it feel a little bit more like a ballpark and a little less like an airplane hangar remains to be seen. But hopefully they can get to work on that and figure something out.
Well, there's some of the new football stadiums have some wacky designs. That the Mercedes-Benz in where the heck is that? Minnesota, I think.
I believe so. Yes. With
the crazy, it looks like all triangles and they close in or whatever, almost like a lens. It's maybe there's something they can come up with even for baseball. Baseball seems to have the whole sliding roof thing, but maybe there's something different somebody can come up with a design.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you mentioned that because for me, that's kind of the hope. In baseball, I don't think they've really done domed or closed stadiums very well, but football has done a really good job of that. You mentioned Minnesota. That's one of my favorite ones. So hopefully, if the time comes when the Diamondbacks need to start putting together some blueprints for what that stadium would look like, maybe they turn to football and they use some of those designs and try to incorporate that into something that fans will actually enjoy.
Well, this has been great, Jesse. I want to thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show tonight. And good luck to the Diamondbacks starting Monday for the rest of the season. Tell the people where they can find your podcast.
Yeah, if you're on Twitter, you can find the show at the Rattle AZ. You can find me personally at Jesse N. Friedman. That's JESSE. Then my last name is spelled FRIEDMAN. You can also find the show on iTunes if you just search for the Rattle. It is there as well.
All right, and go check it out, everybody. It's a very interesting and a well done podcast, and you'll enjoy it a lot. Jesse, again, thanks so much for coming on, and I hope we get to talk again in the future.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure. Thanks, Gary.
And I'll be right back after these messages.
Hey, baseball fans and book fans as well. This is Frank Nappi, author of the Legend of Mickey Tussler series, inviting all of you to learn more about my protagonist, Mickey Tussler, an incredible pitching prodigy who has autism. Follow Mickey's journey as he captures the hearts of fans everywhere with his blazing fastball and indomitable spirit. Please visit Amazon or www.franknappy.com for more information.
Hi, this is the world-famous Mr. Brewtown of BrewtownSports.podomatic.com. You know, you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Google+. Brewtown Sports. You can also listen to the show at Stitcher.com, TuneIn.com, and iTunes.com. And we've got the new one. It's called BrewtownRadio.weebly.com, but the one that I'm most proud of being on is BaseballPodcast.net. It is the home of great baseball talk shows. Check it out, my show, and all kinds of other programs all about Major League Baseball. So check it out. That's BaseballPodcast.net, the home for great baseball talk shows.
The Phillies and Mets rivalry has never been better. Hi, my name is Rich Baxter, and I host Phillies Talk Podcast. I hope you'll join me as we talk all about the Phillies all season long. That's Phillies Talk Podcast at fightinphillies.com. And now back to Gary Mack and this great edition of Mets Musings.
516-619-6341. That is the comment voicemail hotline if you'd like to be a part of the show. And drop us a line, leave us a comment or a voicemail, question, anything at all. Call that number, 516-619-6341. Or go to MetsMusings.com and click on that widget in the middle of the screen, and that's a speak pipe, and you can leave a voicemail right through your computer through your computer's microphone. Or if you prefer to do things the old-fashioned way, send us an email at metsmusings@gmail.com. The Facebook page is facebook.com/groups/MetsMusings, and the Twitter handle is at MetsMusings1. And if you'd like to help out the show, check out our Patreon page. Check out the campaign at patreon.com/MetsMusings. Okay, and we're back in a couple of things to clear up before we go. A couple of little reports here. Mets third baseman David Wright hopes to begin baseball activities at the end of May, reports Anthony DiComo of MLB.com. Wright will have a follow-up visit with a doctor at the end of the month, which will determine whether he will be cleared. The 35-year-old Wright suffered persistent shoulder and lower back issues during spring training and was shut down for 2 months. He said at the time that he sought to begin his spring training in May. Looks like it's going to be more like June. He also said back in March, when it's all said and done, I want to be able to say I did everything I could. If it works, that's obviously the goal. If it doesn't work, then I'll rest easy knowing that I gave it my best shot. Wright, who has been plagued by spinal stenosis and other injuries, missed all of the 2017 season and has played in just 75 games in the past 3 seasons. And also tonight, there is a story from Anthony DiComo that the Mets have installed a hot dog roller at a vacant Mets locker between those of pitcher Jacob deGrom and outfielder Jay Bruce, and that it was actively being used to cook hot dogs. Of course, Twitter went crazy. People wanted to know, is it Matt Harvey's old locker? And how apropos if they are using Matt Harvey's empty locker to cook hot dogs in. You just never know. All right, that's going to wrap it up for this week's show. What can I say? Mets are home for the next 6 games, 3 with the Arizona Diamondbacks, as we just heard with Jesse Friedman. And then the Miami Marlins come in for 3. And then they will hit the road to play Milwaukee and Atlanta before coming back to face the Cubbies. But let's hope for the best. Let's hope they can get something together, start hitting. The offense has been offensive. And let's hope they can get it going because the season is slipping away mighty quick. All right, that's going to wrap it up for me. We're Mets fans, so remember, hang in there, keep the faith, stay optimistic, and let's go Mets.